For decades, the Beatles and the Rolling Stones have been framed as rivals, the clean-cut innovators versus the rebellious bluesmen. Yet, according to Keith Richards, that narrative never truly reflected reality. In fact, Richards has gone so far as to suggest that George Harrison and even John Lennon could easily have been members of the Rolling Stones. I don't think John Lennon would have had much problem fitting into the Stones, or George, if you can imagine that sort of thing happening, Richards said in an interview with The Telegraph in 2023. The comment was not meant as provocation, but as a reflection of how closely aligned the two bands were in their formative years. Richards emphasized that both groups emerged from the same musical soil. "We were the same generation, and we all loved the same music," he said. "When we first heard the Beatles, we were relieved that there was some other band in England on the same track that we were on, and within a few months that track was the main track." Among the Beatles, Richards said he spent the most time with John Lennon and George Harrison, forging friendships that extended well beyond professional courtesy. Speaking to USA Today, Richards recalled visiting George's house in London alongside Ronnie Wood and Eric Clapton. "We used to go to George's place and play guitar and get stoned, the usual," he said with characteristic bluntness. The bond between the two bands dates back to the early 1960s when they were still navigating the same club circuit. Richards recalled that it was John Lennon and Paul McCartney who gave the Rolling Stones their first major hit, "I Want to Be Your Man," in 1963. "John was a particularly good friend of mine," Richards said. "Stories that cannot be told," he added with a laugh. "George was a lovely guy, Paul a great songwriter, and Ringo, what a guy, what a steady beat." One of Richards' most vivid memories captures how early and informal that relationship was. He recalled playing a gig at the Station Hotel in Richmond, one of the band's few regular bookings at the time. "I turned round, and there are these four guys in black leather overcoats standing there. This was soon after Love Me Do, really early on. From then on, we were always good mates." Contrary to popular myth, Richards insists there was no real competition between the two bands. In a 2003 response to a fan on his website's Ask Keith section, he explained that the Stones and the Beatles often coordinated release schedules to avoid clashing singles. He said, "We would collaborate with each other, so we didn't go head-to-head. The idea of, you're either Beatles or Stones, that's bullshit." "There was never any sense of competition," Richards concluded. "It was cooperation." In Richards' telling, the divide between the world's two most famous bands was never musical or personal. Instead, it was a story created after the fact, one that obscured a shared history of friendship, mutual respect, and a deep love of the same music.